ladies and gentlemen. In every person's journey through life, we encounter others who leave marks. Some heal us, while others scar us. Not all wounds bleed. Some are invisible, hidden beneath what seems like charm, confidence, or intellect. Yet they infect the spirit and suffocate the soul. There are 6 types of people, 6 shadows, that we must recognize and avoid, not out of fear or hatred, but out of sacred self-respect. To know them is to reclaim your freedom. Let's walk through these types, not as a warning alone, but as a way of reclaiming sovereignty over our emotional and psychological life. There is a figure that walks among us, cloaked not in shadows but in sorrow, and their steps are deliberate, soft, and heavy. They are not the obvious oppressor, nor the villain in a tale of clear good and evil. Rather, they are the one who holds the cup of suffering so tightly that their knuckles pale, offering it up to you not for healing, but for worship. The eternal victim, the master of helplessness, is not merely a person in pain. We all suffer, we all break, but where one seeks to mend the crack, to let the light in, this figure makes the wound a shrine. In the early stages, the call of the eternal victim tugs at the heart with the familiar voice of compassion. We respond as any noble soul would, to care, to hold, to lift. We listen with soft eyes, we soothe, but there lies a cunning seduction in the gravity of their despair, for it invites not your aid but your allegiance. It is not enough that you see them, we must kneel beside them. And when you do, you begin to forget your own legs, your own path. Slowly, insidiously, your direction becomes theirs. Your light begins to dim. Not extinguished in a flash, but shaded, 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 until the horizon you once walked toward disappears entirely. I remember Sarah. She was a woman who breathed in verse and exhaled beauty. Poetry was her soul speaking aloud. Her words had rhythm, not just of meter, but of meaning, a melody of survival, of triumph, of revelation. But Sarah had a friend who, at every triumph, wept, not tears of joy, but of void. At every poem read aloud, a silence followed. Not the silence of awe, but the silence of grief. "You're so lucky," the friend would whisper. "I wish I had something to be proud of." And Sarah, who once danced with language, grew still. Her pen began to dry, not from lack of ink, but from guilt. What is joy, she thought, if it casts a shadow over someone else's sorrow? And so she stopped. She dimmed her light so that it would not highlight the other's darkness. But in doing so, she betrayed something sacred within herself. This is the quiet tragedy the eternal victim performs. They extract loyalty from your empathy and convert your compassion into chains. The most insidious element of this dynamic is that it is rarely conscious. These are not monsters. They do not rise each morning plotting your downfall. In truth, many of them are deeply wounded souls, unable or unwilling to move from the position of suffering because, for them, it is identity. Their pain becomes their flag, their helplessness their domain. And they defend that territory fiercely, though not with swords, but with sighs, with subtle deflections, with despair dressed as truth. If I can't find happiness, how dare you be so careless as to claim it in front of me? But the heart is not a battlefield where only one can survive. Your growth does not invalidate another's struggle. And yet the eternal victim crafts a silent doctrine, that compassion means co-suffering, that to love them you must bleed with them, that healing must be mutual or not at all. And this is where the danger festers, not in the sorrow itself, but in its refusal to change form. Life asks us to suffer, yes, but it also demands that we transmute suffering into wisdom, into resilience, into beauty. Pain is not an end point, it is an invitation to metamorphosis. But the eternal victim refuses the call to transformation. Instead, they immortalize the wound, they frame it, they expect you to bow to it. Energy is a sacred resource. It is what we use to create, to heal, to evolve. When we continually pour it into someone else's stagnation, we begin to stagnate ourselves. Watering the dead soil of another's unwillingness becomes an act of slow erosion, first of your time, then of your purpose, and finally of your soul. And the more you give, the more they require, not because they are evil, not because they are malicious, but because they are empty, and emptiness is never satisfied. Boundaries, then, are not cruelty, they are clarity. The line drawn is not a wall, but a window through which we declare, I see you, I care for you, but I will not extinguish my fire to warm your endless winter. You do not heal another by dying in their place, nor do you become holy by refusing your own ascension. There is a form of love that is more powerful than sacrifice. It is the love that teaches, that uplifts, that dares to say, you can stand. I believe you can. But the eternal victim rejects this love. They seek not wings, but witnesses. And so, to stay with them in their condition, you must clip your own. And what tragedy is greater than flightless angels? To allow someone to suffer is hard. To walk away when they reach for you with trembling hands feels like betrayal. But to remain when your presence is no longer healing but enabling is to participate in their self-destruction. That is not love. That is codependence dressed in saintly robes. We must learn to distinguish compassion from captivity. The heart can ache for someone and still walk away. You are not cruel for choosing your wholeness. You are not selfish for choosing to grow. The one who demands your loyalty to their suffering is not asking for love. They are asking for a witness to their own unwillingness to change. And if you oblige, you become part of their prison. Every soul must choose whether to remain in the cycle of helplessness or to rise into the unknown terror of freedom. You cannot make that choice for them. You can only make it for yourself. And once you do, you begin to rise, sometimes slowly, sometimes with painful steps. But each inch you reclaim is a prayer to the universe that you are worthy of joy, of progress, of light. Do not fear being misunderstood. Do not fear being called cold. The world has enough martyrs. What it needs are whole beings who refuse to sacrifice their becoming at the altar of another's resistance. The most profound kindness is not to sink, but to rise. And in rising, to remind others that it is possible. Even when they cannot yet see it, even when they hate you for it. There is power in boundaries, there is wisdom in choosing growth, and there is love, not guilt, not obligation, but true, luminous love, in saying, I will not kneel to your pain. I will hold space for your healing, but I must walk forward. For in that step, we do not abandon them, we invite them into the light. There exists a figure in our midst whose presence is as captivating as it is deceptive. They walk among us cloaked in charm, speaking in harmonies we recognize as our own. Their voice reflects our ideals, our desires, our convictions, as though they have known us all along. They smile in a way that disarms suspicion, their gaze warm with understanding, their gestures rehearsed yet seamless. We are drawn to them, pulled by the gravity of something familiar, something almost sacred. Yet this familiarity is no accident. It is a deliberate construction, a mask crafted from fragments of ourselves that they have mirrored back to us. These individuals are not mere deceivers. They are architects of illusion. They do not command by force, rather they seduce the will. Their gift lies in their ability to create intimacy where none exists, to simulate connection so vividly that we mistake it for something real, something earned. They whisper our dreams and echo our fears, weaving themselves into the very architecture of our inner world, and so we trust them. We open the gates willingly, not realizing that in doing so, we are surrendering something far more precious than loyalty. We are surrendering agency. This manipulation is not impulsive. It is methodical, often chillingly so. Scientific inquiry confirms this unsettling truth. A study from the University of British Columbia revealed that individuals high in Machiavellian traits, marked by manipulation, strategic thinking, and emotional detachment, were consistently rated as more likable during first encounters. Strangers felt drawn to them, compelled to trust them. This data does not merely explain behavior, it exposes a profound psychological blind spot. We are wired, it seems, to be seduced by the semblance of resonance, to mistake charisma for character and intention for authenticity. Imagine then the leader who speaks of hope, unity and courage with stirring eloquence. Their words wrap around your spirit like a warm blanket in a cold world. But when the lights dim and the stage empties, what remains? Behind the scenes they rule not through inspiration but through coercion, not through vision but through fear. The mask slips only in the silence, revealing a cold calculus where once we saw conviction. It is not their cruelty that wounds most deeply, but the betrayal of the intimacy they feigned. For we did not merely believe in them, we believed they believed in us. And this is why they are dangerous, not because they take our power by force, but because they persuade us to place it in their hands. We do not feel conquered, we feel chosen. And therein lies the genius of the mask. It is not a tool of deception alone, it is a weapon of spiritual theft. For once we awaken, the mask is gone, and in its place stands not a friend, not a leader, not a lover, but a stranger who never truly existed at all. In the chambers of the human soul lies not only the impulse to build, but also the quiet yearning to destroy. An urge so subtle, so veiled, that even its host may not recognize its presence. This force does not arrive with fanfare or fury. It speaks not in harsh words, but in agreeable murmurs. It dwells in the smile that conceals indifference, in the handshake that conceals withdrawal. This is the essence of the passive destroyer, the silent saboteur whose allegiance to failure is disguised as cooperation. We often seek enemies in those who oppose us openly, but the deeper danger resides in those who cloak their resistance in courtesy. These are the ones who nod in agreement, who say all the right things, but whose feet never move in rhythm with their words. They do not clash with your dreams, they simply weigh them down with the inertia of indecision, the gravity of delay. Their weapon is not the sword, but the silence after the promise, the missed deadline, the forgotten commitment. It is the decay of momentum masked as mere forgetfulness. The true cruelty of such sabotage lies in its ambiguity. You question yourself before you question them. Was I unclear? Did I expect too much? This self-doubt is the first victory of the passive destroyer. Their charm disarms your intuition, their pleasant demeanor discredits your instincts, and as the tide slowly wears away the rock, so too do they erode the foundations of your trust. What is left is not anger, but fatigue, a soul drained by the unseen war of unmet expectation. Beneath this pattern lies a deeper psychological truth. This is not mere laziness or accident. It is the quiet revolt of the hidden self, the shadow of the coward. It is the part of the psyche that cannot bear the brightness of another's success, and so it dims the light subtly, pretending to adjust the lamps while blowing out the flame. If I cannot rise, it whispers in the unconscious, neither shall you soar, and thus cooperation becomes sabotage, masked in the garb of friendship, alliance, or loyalty. This figure is dangerous not because they strike, but because they don't. They force you to bleed your time, your energy, and your faith in others. There is no wound to bind, no confrontation to resolve, only a slow unraveling of progress, an almost imperceptible drift away from your purpose. Neglect, after all, is a betrayal that leaves no scar, but it hollows you out just the same. To face this force is to reclaim your discernment. You must listen not only to what is said, but to what is consistently done. Measure the integrity of those around you by the bridge between their word and their will. For if we are to guard our dreams, we must not only shield them from open attack, but from the quiet hand that slowly, sweetly pull them apart. There is a figure who walks among us cloaked in righteousness, armed not with compassion but with condemnation. This is the moral tyrant, a judge who has traded the scales of justice for the blade of shame. They do not guide, they declare. They do not seek truth, they impose it. In their world, everything is either sacred or profane, and there is no room for the human struggle in between. Their gaze penetrates not to understand, but to accuse, and once they have judged you, there is no redemption. You are cast down so they may rise. I recall the tale of a young man trembling beneath the weight of such judgment. He had devoted himself to the teachings of a mentor, a preacher who claimed divine clarity. To this preacher, questions were not the soul's yearning for understanding, they were rebellion. The young man, growing in mind and spirit, began to wonder aloud, not to disobey, but to understand. But to the preacher, this was betrayal. The punishment was swift. He was exiled not from a place, but from a relationship that once promised safety. His hunger for wisdom was labeled sin. His voice, once welcomed, became the echo of heresy. He did not leave the church. He was expelled from grace. This is the wound inflicted by the moral tyrant. Their cruelty is masked by conviction. They bind the soul not with chains of iron, but with invisible ropes of shame. And what makes them most dangerous is that they truly believe they are saving you, even as they destroy your spirit. They mistake domination for love and certainty for virtue. Their world permits no shadow, yet they themselves are governed by it. For in their zeal to banish doubt from others, they are only fleeing from the doubt within themselves. Curiosity is the breath of transformation. It is the tender whisper that awakens the self. But in the presence of a tyrant, that whisper is silenced. One cannot question and survive. One cannot evolve without risk. And so, growth becomes a crime, and silence becomes safety. Many live as prisoners in the name of purity. But why? What drives this unyielding hunger to judge? Beneath their rigid exterior lies a fragile soul. To make others small is to mask their own fear of insignificance. To pronounce others unworthy is to avoid the trembling truth within. Their own uncertainty, their own flaws, their own desperate need to matter. By naming others sinners, they crown themselves saints. But it is not sainthood, it is escape. A throne built on fear is no sanctuary, only a cage. We must recognize the tyrant not only in others, but in ourselves. For the temptation to judge without mercy, to seek control in the guise of virtue, resides in every human heart. And only by facing this shadow within can we truly offer others the space to grow, to err, and to become. The envious soul walks beside you, not with open malice, but with the quiet tremor of resentment barely hidden behind a smile. They are not the villain in the shadows, but the companion who claps a second too late. Their admiration wears a mask, polished, practiced, and polite. Yet behind their eyes the storm brews. This is not envy as a passing impulse. It is envy as an identity, woven subtly into their being. They do not wish for your failure outright. Rather, they are tormented by your success. And that torment festers in silence. This figure is difficult to name because they often do not know themselves. They believe their intentions are pure, that their applause is real, but a part of them withers when you rise. Every step you climb illuminates the gap between you and them, not in distance, but in self-worth. They do not cheer for your elevation because it feels like their diminishment. You become the mirror they dread to look into, a reflection not of their failures, but of their unlived potential. The envious soul keeps score, not because they wish to compete, but because comparison is their compass. When you achieve, they do not ask how, they ask, why not me? And so the poison drips quietly. They will never strike in the open. Theirs is the slow erosion. They may whisper hesitation into your dreams, couching it in concern. They may fail to defend you when you're not in the room. And worst of all, they may remain silent when your soul cries for affirmation. It is their indifference, not their attack, that wounds the deepest. Harold Coffin captured it with painful clarity. Envy is counting another's blessings instead of your own. And this arithmetic of the heart, this tallying of others' light, dims their own. A study in 2018 found that most people feel envy in their closest relationships, but only a fraction ever confront it. Why? Because envy wears the skin of love. It passes as friendship, disguises itself as mentorship, and yet in truth it feeds off proximity. They must be near you to feel the sting. Such souls are dangerous not because they act, but because they withhold. They see your fire and offer no warmth in return. They let you burn alone while standing close enough to benefit from your light. Their silence becomes betrayal, not through action, but through absence. When you need the courage of community, they vanish into shadows, held hostage by their own hidden wounds. To confront such souls is not just to protect yourself, it is to reclaim your right to rise without apology. You are not responsible for the storms others stir in their own hearts. Walk forward anyway, shine anyway, and remember, a soul that keeps score cannot know true connection. Let them go, not in anger, but in liberation, for them and for you. So, how do we protect ourselves? We do not armor our hearts, we awaken them. We develop the quiet art of discernment, not paranoia, not judgment, but the ability to see clearly. The ancient world did not separate psychology from spirituality. They believed that evil did not appear with horns, but with smiles, soft words, and sometimes even shed blood. Final message. Protect your peace like a sacred flame. You are not cruel for walking away, you are not selfish for choosing growth, and you are not unkind for wanting to breathe freely. Some people are not meant to be changed, they are meant to be understood and avoided. Thank you.